So we're now going to hear from Alison Harper, who's an amazing artist and a key member of the Grow Batheston community group. So she's just going to tell us a bit about the group, what they're doing and their journey so far. So Alison, over to you.
Hello. Hi Emma, can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you for asking me to speak tonight. I don't do a lot of this, so yeah, apologies for any shortcomings. But yeah, Grow Batheston's been in existence about 3 years now, and it began from, well, at the beginning of lockdown, really. I think we were all, there was a small group of people who got together. We didn't know each other, actually. I think there was one mutual person who kind of gathered a little group together. Sometimes we weren't allowed to speak to each other, were we? So talking through hedgerows and things like that. Yeah, got together and were quite shocked really by what was going on, and we were really thinking about, in the beginning, food security, because we were all sort of gardeners and growers in some form or other. Yeah, so we got together and started having sort of Zoom meetings, which were quite productive. And then, you know, I think, well, Zoom was kind of new then, wasn't it? So we were all new to Zoom. So it was all a huge learning curve. So out of that, we could, I think, yeah, then restrictions eased and we were able to meet in like socially distanced meetings in people's gardens. So that was really interesting. And we kind of thought there was a place for like a local group within Batheaston. So we formed this CIC, community interest company, called Grow Batheston. So we did that. So we had the chair and the various treasurer, etc., in order to get a bank account, which was pretty tricky. We did that, and then we kind of the things that we were interested in was sustainability, obviously, improving biodiversity, because although we live in a very beautiful area, the large parts of it were just mown, for example, just cut every year. So we want to strengthen community also. So there were sort of several strands to the group. We gradually, well, for instance, we've started a local football team for kids. So that's been a lot of fun. We've also got a football team for adults. So that's been quite a bit of fun as well. Walking football. We've got a growing group, and we've used WhatsApp quite a lot, which has been really useful. So our growing group's got about 40 members, I think. We've also got a wildlife group where we can put on things we've seen or things we don't recognize or new things. We've had the opportunity, as you can see from the picture, that's our forest garden. I mean, I've always been a gardener, but I've never had any formal training. So became more of a gardener, shall we say, then became a wild gardener, then got into forest gardening, which was, yeah, quite a learning curve. So we all had some training, some people had done permaculture courses. So this forest garden is at the back of the secret garden in Batheaston, and it was an area of waste ground, which over several years, it hasn't been easy by any means, but we've kind of made it into a very nice kind of area with a seating area, a seat that's got willow growing over it, and a kind of den. So part of it is wild, and forest gardening is all about growing with nature. So there's always that balance, which kind of fascinates me and always has, really, I think, since my gardening has become more kind of nature friendly and allowing, you know, how you allow wildlife into the garden and how you encourage it, nurture it, and yeah, don't do anything to destroy it or put it off. And yeah, it hasn't been easy because people have different opinions, and yeah, so that was quite a learning curve. We've also planted lots of fruit trees on the housing estate on Elmhurst, which is across the way, and also we've got like slopes that where the trees are, fruit trees are, and we call it the orchard slope, and hasn't been cut. We negotiated with Curo, and also Baines. It's quite complicated. Some areas are owned by Baines and some are Curo. So they stopped cutting, and then we planted some. We were trying to make a meadow, but it wasn't easy by any means. So the grass is still hasn't been cut now. Well, one area in particular hasn't been cut at all. Well, a little bit. So we're going to see what happens. So making a meadow is not easy, and we've just planted some more wildflower seeds down around the edge of the car park in Batheaston, and we did that quite late. So of course now it hasn't rained at all. So we've taken to hand watering them. So that's been pretty interesting too. So we found our partners. It was important to find, who we could work with, who was going to support us. So we've been supported by Bathscape, Bath and West Community Energy have supported with funding, and the council has been great. Sarah Warren and Kevin Guy have been very helpful, and of course the Wildlife Trust. And we've even done an art trail, which takes place in October, and then this year we're going to do it again, and it's going to have a kind of sculpture and willow trail as well, because there are very old veteran willows down by the river. They've been pollarded just a few years ago, and they looked dreadful. I was sure they were going to die, and it was all bare underneath. It was terrible. But anyway, they've sprung back up like willows do, and all the way along where any pieces of willow were left, they've all started growing. So it's the most extraordinary plant. So that's going to be the basis for a kind of willow, not festival exactly, but using willow weaving, and also the ideas around the river, maybe the beavers. So linking that all together into maybe a story or a contemporary fairy tale, because willows are kind of deep in our psyche, really. Think about the wind in the willows, and they're fantastic for wildlife too. Yeah, so it's great to meet Emma and Christian, because I love talking plants. So anyone who'll talk to me about plants, that's brilliant. And I must just say that if anyone's interested in Beth Chatto has got a website. I don't know if anyone knows her garden. I mean, she's no longer alive, but they had a conference last year called Rewilding the Mind, and all the talks are still online and they're free now. They're really worth watching. There's some great ones by, I think Dan Pearson's doing one, has done one, Fergus Garrett, and a man called David Little, is it, who uses a lot of crushed concrete to grow wild flowers. He says we don't need so much soil as a substrate. So that's all really interesting. Yeah, and in the autumn we did have some pop-up markets by the riverside, but it's a huge amount of work. So we're having a food and craft fair in September, and we've done lots of food, plant and seed swaps as well, like 3 a year. So yeah, we're going to keep doing those. The next one is June the 10th in Batheaston. So if you're in the car park there, so if you're nearby, come and say hi. And I don't know how long have I been, Emma?
No, that's fantastic. Thank you so much, Alison, for sharing that. I feel like everyone here can gain inspiration from what you're doing at Grow Batheston. It was so lovely to visit. If anyone here gets a chance to go, it's absolutely gorgeous, amazing wildflower areas. So thank you so much.
Yeah, Emma and I were sort of lost with our phones, taking pictures of all the amazing wildlife that was in that space. It was just so fantastic to see how such a kind of actually quite a relatively sort of small space can have so much diversity and so much. We were treated to so much wildlife in half an hour. It's absolutely wonderful. Great also to hear about that use of social media as a way of creating sort of peer networks as well and sharing ideas. You know, WhatsApp is a fantastic tool for sharing pictures and asking questions and things like that as well. I was just going to say as well, we'll find the link for that, Rewilding the Mind, and we'll share that in our follow-up email as well, because that sounds really
there's also a fantastic website, actually. I don't know if you've come across Plants for the Future, where actually, of course, maybe it's not so much to do with wildlife, but it tells you the properties of plants, which ones are edible, how edible they are. They're all edible, but some are more edible than others. But it's the most fantastic website. It's the sort of things you discover when you investigate forest gardening. But yeah, I'll shut up now. Okay.
Thank you so much. And I think it's just, you know, a part of what's driving us is this idea of being able to share knowledge and to look to each other to see how different people are taking action, how communities are coming together, and to not just keep it in that one community, but to share that information and let that sort of spread across our entire region. Brilliant.